Welcome along to the Complete Aviation Solutions Deep Dive number 84.
Good to be here.
So today we're diving into a few key reports that have come across our desk recently. We're looking at some major developments in the aviation world.
Yeah, definitely. We've got stories covering everything from, financial goals at a national carrier to the big legal settlement for a manufacturer and even some significant fleet expansion.
Exactly. Our aim, as always, is to really unpack these reports, pull out the important insights, and give you a clear picture of what's happening and, crucially, why it matters.
It's quite a mix, isn't it? Different companies, different situations, but all shedding light on the kind of challenges and, well, opportunities out there in aviation right now.
Okay, let's kick off with Air Mauritius. They've set a pretty ambitious target, aiming to be profitable by the 2026-27 fiscal year.
And they're looking for a full recovery the year after that, 2027.
What really struck me was the chairman's confidence. He's quoted as being 99.9% sure they'll break even next year.
That's quite a statement. He puts it down to a revamped business plan.
And he was very firm on one point: no privatization plans. That seems important for a national carrier.
Absolutely. But, that confidence comes against the backdrop of some real difficulties they've had.
Like what specifically?
Well, the reports mentioned past issues with planning aircraft maintenance. Apparently, this led to some pretty bad flight delays because maintenance in Italy took longer than expected.
Oh, right.
And also corrosion problems on planes that were grounded during the pandemic. Stuff like that really highlights how vital that detailed operational planning is.
Yeah, you can see how things can snowball.
For sure. And the fact they might need to lease a spare aircraft now, it suggests maybe those pressures aren't completely gone.
That makes sense. And it hasn't all been smooth sailing on the PR front either, has it? There's been some media criticism.
Right, about staffing levels and also about the chairman's own company's dealings with the airline.
He's defended both, stressing legality and transparency. But you have to think, public perception is pretty key when you're trying to turn a national airline around.
Definitely. And there's mention, too, that their Skytrax rating could take a hit if these reforms don't stick, although an internal audit apparently suggests recovery is possible if they, put the work in.
So accountability seems to be a theme, too. They've got investigations going on.
Yeah, two main ones, it seems. An external firm is looking into 3 big fleet transactions from back when they're in voluntary administration, around 2020, 2021.
Okay.
And then there's a separate internal investigation in some engine damage that resulted in a, pretty hefty financial penalty, something like USD 8.45 million.
Wow. And that's on top of reported losses from aircraft sales between 2017 and 2021.
Yeah, about MUR 1.22 billion, which is roughly USD 27 million. There were even allegations of theft related to those sales, and the Prime Minister apparently promised an investigation.
So a lot of past issues to clean up. And the cumulative losses between 2015 and 2024 were significant, too.
Hugely significant. MUR 7.72 billion, or about USD 170 million over that period. So yeah, getting back to profitability is a massive undertaking.
Just to give a sense of their current size, we're talking 12 aircraft, serving 14 destinations on 13 routes, with around 28 flights a day.
So a decent regional network, but clearly that turnaround is critical for their future.
Okay, let's shift gears now to a much bigger player, Boeing. There's been a major development regarding the B737 MAX crashes.
Yes, the U.S. Department of Justice. It looks like they're not going to prosecute Boeing criminally over the 2 crashes.
No prosecution.
And in principle, non-prosecution agreement has been reached.
Yeah.
So they avoid a criminal conviction. The DOJ's rationale is that this is a fair outcome.
How so?
They believe it serves the public interest, provides accountability and benefits, but also avoids the risks and uncertainties of a long trial.
This has been hanging over them for a long time. We're talking about the crashes in 2018 and 2019 that killed 346 people.
Exactly. And Boeing was actually facing a charge of conspiracy to defraud the U.S. related to all that. A trial was potentially just next month.
I remember there was that earlier settlement, too, back in 2021 for about USD 2.5 billion, right? That was meant to avoid prosecution then.
It was. But then came the B737-9 door plug incident back in January this year.
Yeah.
That sort of disrupted things, violated the terms of that earlier agreement, and brought prosecution back onto the table. Another proposed settlement was even rejected by a judge at one point.
So this new agreement, what does it involve for Boeing?
Well, critically, they have to admit to conspiring to obstruct the FAA's aircraft evaluation group. That's a big admission.
And financially.
It's significant. Over USD 1.1 billion in total. That breaks down into a penalty of about USD 487 million, then USD $444.5 million for the victims' families, and another $455 million earmarked for improving their safety and compliance programs.
So there's a focus on future prevention, too.
Definitely. They have to keep enhancing their anti-fraud and ethics programs, and there'll be an independent monitor checking up on that. They also have to keep the government informed about improvements.
And I saw something about the board meeting with families.
That's right. The agreement requires Boeing's board to meet with the families of the crash victims. Acknowledging the human cost seems to be a part of this resolution.
Still, this kind of agreement, a non-prosecution one, it's likely to be controversial, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The DOJ apparently consulted with the families, but it hasn't satisfied everyone. We've seen reports quoting a lawyer for some families calling it unprecedented and obviously wrong. It highlights just how deep the feelings run.
Yeah, understandable. And just for context, Boeing operates 18 aircraft out of Washington National.
Yeah.
So a significant presence there.
Right. So this agreement still needs the final sign-off from the U.S. District Court judge. But assuming it gets approved, it lets Boeing, move forward without that immediate threat of a criminal conviction.
Which would have been massive for their business, government contracts, everything.
Huge implications.
Yeah.
But the intense scrutiny on their safety culture, on their accountability, that's almost certainly going to continue. This isn't necessarily the end of the story for them in terms of public and regulatory pressure.
Okay, let's turn to our third story, which is one of, well, straightforward expansion. Vietjet Air.
Yes, the Vietnamese carrier. They've just doubled down on their wide-body plans.
Double down how?
They've added another 20 Airbus A330-900Ns to an existing order. So now they've got a total of 40 of that variant on order from Airbus.
40 A330neos. That's a serious commitment to long haul.
Absolutely. And it seems this is all part of their plan to really grow their long-haul route network. The signing ceremony was apparently quite high profile, too, held in Hanoi with the French president present.
So this adds to the 20 they ordered previously. I think that was at Farnborough last year.
That's the one. So, it shows a clear, consistent strategy. And this isn't in isolation. Their overall order book is massive.
What else do they have on order?
A whole mix, really. Various A321neo types, including the NX and the XLRs for longer-range narrow-body routes.
Yeah.
And also Boeing 737 MAXs, both the Enemy 8 and the high-density NX-8200. In total, they've got 246 additional aircraft on order across all types.
Wow, 246. That's huge growth potential.
It really is, yeah. And interestingly, 50 of those ordered 737s are actually earmarked for their subsidiary, Thai Vietjet Air.
Ah, okay. So spreading the growth across the group.
It seems like it. Thai Vietjet currently flies A320s and A321s.
So these new A330-900Ns, the big wide bodies, what will they be used for? Replacing older planes?
Primarily, yes. They'll eventually replace the airline's current fleet of 7 older A330-300s, and these new ones will have Rolls-Royce Trent 7000 engines.
Which are known for being pretty fuel efficient, right? Important for long haul.
Crucial for the economics, yeah. So looking at their whole fleet right now, it's mostly Airbus narrow-bodies, A320s, A321s of various types, including the Neos, plus these current A330s, and even a couple of wet lease Comac C909s. About 96 aircraft in total currently operating.
And where are they flying now? What's their reach?
They serve 56 airports across 14 countries currently. And there was talk earlier this year, around March, that they were actively considering new routes into Europe and possibly the United States.
So this big A330neo order fits perfectly with that ambition.
Exactly. It gives them the tools to make that jump. They operate out of Hanoi Noi Bai International as their main base, flying around 116 routes with something like 416 daily flights. They're already a significant regional player.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together as we wrap up this deep dive. We've covered quite a bit of ground.
We have 3 very different situations, really.
Yeah, you've got Air Mauritius fighting its way back to financial health, dealing with legacy issues, but aiming for that turnaround.
Then you have Boeing navigating the incredibly complex legal and reputational fallout from the MAX tragedies, reaching a settlement but still facing, intense scrutiny.
And finally, Vietjet Air, which is clearly in growth mode, making a major investment to significantly expand its long-haul capabilities.
It really paints a picture of just how varied the landscape is in aviation right now. Financial restructuring, regulatory oversight, safety culture, strategic fleet decisions for future growth. It's all happening simultaneously.
It is. And for you listening, it's worth thinking about how these connect, maybe. How does a national carrier's struggle for profitability in one region potentially impact connections?
Or how does a major manufacturer's settlement influence safety protocols across the entire industry? What lessons are learned or maybe not learned.
And what happens when a relatively young, ambitious airline like Vietjet Air starts seriously competing on long-haul routes currently dominated by legacy carriers? What does that mean for fares, for service, for your travel options?
These individual stories definitely have wider ripples, something to mull over for sure.